Hello and welcome back to the 12 Days of Christmas Horse Wisdom Guided by Equus. I'm Jess Campmans, Guided by Equus, and this is day 2 of the 12 Days of Horse Wisdom Gifts, I guess. So thank you for joining me here once again, and I'm excited to share what feels like a piece of a bringing into aspect and effect what's actually going on in our skies right now and in our life, which is today's December 13th and tomorrow is a solar eclipse. And if you're affected, which we kind of all on some level are affected by what happens in the skies and the stars, and whether you believe in that or not, it actually, us as being humans, is part of the natural rhythm of all of the cycles of life, move with the cycles of everything that's going on in our natural world and environment. And so with the eclipse right now, it's like we've lost a point of contact from the past, and we're not yet able to really see the future. But if you have been having any sorts of insights or awarenesses come kind of just drop into your head, like a download of information or something that has actually risen from within you, that you realize, why am I still holding on to this? Because when we talk about just let it go, if you think I'm just going to let it go, it actually becomes like a boomerang and it comes back to you because it's gained momentum, until you can actually have an awareness of why you are holding on to that thing. And once you have that awareness, then you're able to consciously, it's like opening up and giving it, breathing new life into that thing that you were holding on to, so you can release it. And release it from a place of, I'll use the word acceptance, but I know some people, even myself, have, I can be in tension actually around acceptance. So it's like releasing it with love, because you have the wisdom as to why you are now actually letting it go. And so until you get that deeper, meaningful wisdom, you can't actually let anything go. And so this story that I want to share today is kind of part of that. All along when I was growing up, I had this idea of owning a black stallion. And when I was about, I don't know, it was shortly after I had got into the Morgan breed, which was around age 12. And I subscribed to a magazine, and I saw this image, this picture of a red chestnut stallion doing a sliding stop in the desert. And just the presence of this horse and who he was attracted me. Something was super attracted to not only his bloodlines, because then I started doing some research, and I spent most of my entire youth researching Morgan horse pedigrees, and I could tell you, even to this day, who's who in that world. But it was something deeper in this horse that I knew I wanted as part of my world. And so, like I said, that was maybe when I was 14 or 15, and I never forgot the name of that horse. And fast forward until I was 30, and I had found a black mare, my first black mare that I had bought actually, and I went for a drive to pick her up. She was in Idaho, and when in a conversation with these people that had sold her to me, they had shared with me that there was a different black mare, and they showed me an image of her. And as I looked at this picture of this horse, this black mare on the computer, I right away knew that she was mine. And so I just cold called the person who was on her registration papers, and I asked if I could buy her. And long story short, within 2 years, she came home with me, and her name was Annie. And her great grandsire was that horse that was doing the sliding stop in the desert, that picture of that horse. And I I didn't know that that was her great-grandsire until after I had done some research on her pedigree. But there was something special about this mare that even my first glance at the computer and knowing deep inside that she was my horse. And so she was with me for many years, and she graced us with a bunch of foals, one of them being my stallion Noche, who is also black, and he's my black stallion. But the more interesting piece of this to me was just the fact that I had called her in long before I ever knew where my life was going. Because when something speaks to you so deeply in such an innate level that I recognized it even at age 14 or 15, that this horse in this picture doing a sliding stop in the desert would be my reference point for a future that I didn't even know existed. And I kind of let that go. I wasn't actively seeking out offspring of that horse. I just kind of then went about my life, and I found some horses and trained them and sold them and stayed with the Morgan breed. But each horse that I bought, hoping to build my breeding program out of, eventually I realized this wasn't quite what I was after. And so part of this story too feels like that in order to be able to actually know what it is that we want and then appreciate it enough to follow through with it, to commit to it, we also have to know and have an experience of all of those things that aren't really for us. And you can say, well, no, I don't really. And maybe if you're different than I am, that's cool. But I guess the point that I'm trying to share is that my experience of all of these other bloodlines within the Morgan horse breed, they all had qualities that were very endearing. But I knew deep in my heart what I wanted. And until Annie came into my life, I didn't realize that that was it. And she actually became the matriarch of, well, one of two of this breeding program that I currently have. And so it was kind of letting go of all of those pieces that I didn't quite realize I needed to experience, but I didn't need to hold on to, so that I could actually appreciate when she came into my life and what she gifted me in Noche and a number of other offspring that have actually gone on to other homes. But she left a legacy here that continues to evolve and support me in my own soul's learning. And Annie has since actually passed on. But what she gave me was such a deep recognition of what I want to call like finding those breadcrumbs and following them, and at the same time letting go of how that needs to show up in your life. Because until I had experienced all of those pieces of walking through the experience of other things and recognizing again that those horses that were meant to come to me, that needed to happen in a timeline that was beyond myself, because I needed experience of other things in order to finally meet up with them when I was ready to be appreciative of where I was at that point in my life. So I kind of hope that makes sense. And I guess to tie that back into where we're at on December 13th in 2020, is that there's all of these pieces that you've kind of brought along with you. And at this point, there's a really big space of potential, of creative potential, that we can actually tap into when we almost go back in time and allow ourselves to identify with those situations or relationships that we recognized we automatically or instinctively knew. That's something that is part of who I am. And I could go even deeper into this with Annie's story, but I'll maybe save that for another time, or a next piece of the mystery that these horses are helping me kind of unravel and realize how important it is to live in the present moment and really be unattached to future outcomes, because then you tend to miss. And I guess, so here's the second piece of that story. In wanting to create this breeding program, I think I maybe missed out on recognizing the calling of where these horses were leading me into. And so there's like two pieces, right? On one hand, I needed to experience a pathway of recognizing all of what I didn't want to build my program into, in order that when it finally came, I could appreciate and accept and receive those horses that were going to help me build this legacy. And I, in my heart, know that Annie came to me to help me do that. And for anyone who, and this is how this works for me, and I've realized that if it doesn't bring me to tears, it's not really authentic enough to help you get a deeper meaning for yourself. And so I actually really embrace it now when I bring myself to tears through the stories that I share, because they are the stories that transformed me. So with that, and the last piece of this, yes, was that Annie came to help me recognize a really big part of who I am. And she left a legacy in horses, but she also helped me tap into this energy field of the idea of leaving a legacy. Oh yes, and that was the final piece. And interestingly enough, my mother-in-law, her name was Annie too. And so it kind of tied a number of pieces of different aspects of life together for me, because my mother-in-law Annie left a legacy. I only knew her for a couple of years before she passed away, but it is through her children and grandchildren, and possibly, hopefully coming soon, not real soon, but sometime in the future, great-grandchildren, that she left a legacy that I would be honored to do the same. So with all of that, and bringing it back to this present moment right now, is where can you kind of give yourself a little, or take some pressure off that we've maybe put on yourself to do something in some way? Because what's also kind of come to me in the last couple weeks and over the course of 2020 is that when we put pressure on ourselves so hard and focus in so much on something, we really lose sight of the bigger picture. And we actually lose the ability to become unattached to how things show up. So it's like taking a step back, taking the pressure off, and just allowing ourselves to be a little bit more receptive. And as soon as you do that, it's like you can take a breath again and almost begin to be able to embrace things in a different way than you can when you're so close up to it, which actually gives you space to find gratitude and appreciation for something that you maybe couldn't see before. So I will leave you with all of that wisdom from the horses that Annie imparted in many ways in my life. And I hope you'll join me here for day 3 tomorrow. And I'm excited to hopefully do these in a live format, but currently with 4 kids and none of them going to school right now, and it being cold outside, I can't seem to find a place and space where I might not get interrupted, which is part of life. I get that. But I wanted to do these first couple in this way, in a recording, and then hopefully I can move into some live 12-day gifts sessions. So thank you very much for joining me here, and much love, and stay tuned for day 3 tomorrow.